Hey, how you guys doing today? Today's training session is over forklifts, so let's get started. First, I have a video for you. It's something to show you what not to do, and I'll talk you through it. So, as you see, you have a forklift here in the back, and here's a man standing here doing his work. And here comes another forklift. As you see, they're doing good, going slow. Their forks are down, and everything's going good so far. But as you see, this one just started up, and so now you have two forklifts kind of close to each other in the same area. He's starting to move, doing good, going slow. This one's moving out of the way, and all of a sudden, something happens. It probably his foot slipped on the pedal, on the gas pedal, on the throttle. Went a little too fast and he hit the racks, and so probably should have been going a little bit slower, should have had more control of the forklift in this situation. And so as you see, it didn't turn out too well for him. So kind of had to do with speed, that accident, and knowing how slow you really need to be going in your situation. So, talking about speed, our next slide has to do with speed. And so, speed with a forklift in the workplace, OSHA does not really have a specific speed limit set for how fast or how slow you need to go. Really, they look at the totality of the factors to your current situation. And that's how they do that, especially like in accidents with their research investigations, is what all played a role in how fast or how slow you should be going. And so they give you on their website, they do give you a couple factors that are important to look at just for you to know how fast or really how slow you should be going in the workplace. So I have a few of them listed here. First one, type of forklift that's being used, different size forklifts. Probably bigger forklifts you need to be going slower. Smaller forklifts, I mean, you most of the time need to be going slow, but definitely need to look into that. Manufacturer's limitations on the vehicle, load being carried, that's a big factor right there, because depending on how big the load you're carrying, depends on how slow or how fast you can go with it. If it's a big load, you probably should be going slower, and so you have more control. Adequate stopping distances. You need to be slowing down before you have to stop. Don't be rushing up to when you have to stop. That's really important as well. Operating surface conditions. Is it raining outside? Or is the ground wet? Did it rain this morning? Did it snow? Did it sleet? Is it slippery? Those are important things to look at when you're driving forklift, especially in the workplace. Pedestrian traffic, probably one of the most important ones. Looking out for people, knowing where other people are working in your workplace so you don't hit them. And then other safety issues that you see in your workplace or in your current specific workplace. Another thing that's important is knowing the center of load for forklifts. It differs depending on what forklift you're using again and what size load you have, but something that they commonly go by usually is the load center, the distance from the face of the fork. So your face of your forks, if you can see right here, up and down right here where the yellow is, that's your fork. So your face of your forks goes up right here. That's the face. And so commonly loads are rated using a 24-inch load center. So that means basically that the center of gravity for your load should be 24 inches or less from the face of your forks, which is right here. Any more than that is really going to probably cause your load to be one side too heavy, and it's going to cause it to fall, and maybe if you have it too high, fall on somebody, cause an accident. So that's really important to look at when you have your loads, or loading something onto a trailer. It's really important to know. And your center of gravity, usually for a forklift like this, is right underneath this front axle. Is where your center of gravity, your center main weight for your forklift is going to be. So that's also important to know. Next is types of fuels that powers forklifts. I have on this presentation, I have 4 different types of fuel that power forklifts. First, we're going to start off with gasoline and diesel. They kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Their ignition rates are different, but gasoline's a little bit more likes to ignite a lot faster. But of course, when you're refueling, no smoking when refueling. That should be a given. Never overfill the tanks. When you overfill the tanks, you don't give the fuel in the tank room to expand, because fuel heats up, especially gas heats up when it or expands when it is heated. And so when you fill the tanks all the way, there's no room in the tank for the fuel to expand, and that could cause an accident or a potential for an accident. Always stop engine when refueling. That's really important as well. And always make sure where you're refueling has been approved or deemed safe to be refueled, or to be refueling equipment in that area as well. The next 2 engines and fuels for forklifts that are commonly used are, our first one is internal combustion engines. So on these engines, you need to always make sure the engine is combusting right, that the engine is working right, because if not, it's kind of commonly known that these engines can cause carbon monoxide and build up of carbon monoxide, and of course carbon monoxide is poisonous, and so it could hurt the operator or people in the area around the forklift, which is not good. It's not what you want for your company. And so always make sure that the engine is working right, combusting right. It has a high percentage to have exposure to leaks of oil and fuel for those engines as well. So that's also something you need to be looking at. And just like this says right here, always check before use all fluid levels, and look for just anything unusual, which that should be common and that should be a given. But on these as well, you always just need to check the fluid levels, make sure that everything looks okay before you use it, and you should be good. Liquid petroleum gas, or LPG, is our next one. And LPG vapor has a tendency to build up in pockets, and LPG vapor usually goes to the ground, it doesn't rise. And so LPG is, you always need to make sure that it's being dissipated or kind of thinning out. It doesn't need to build up into pockets, because LPG vapor is really flammable. And so that's something you need to look out with when you're using LPG powered forklifts, because that is something that they have a tendency to do, and so it's important to look for. LPG is extremely cold when it is exposed to the atmosphere, and so you always need to have PPE, the correct PPE when refueling tanks or forklifts. Probably long sleeve shirts, long pants, closed-toed shoes, probably boots. You need to have your gloves on, and your safety glasses as well, because when it touches your skin, it's so cold that it could cause frostbite. And so that's something that's important to try and stay clear of. And so you need to have correct PPE when you're refueling with these. And always turn service valve off when leaving LPG powered trucks sitting for long periods of time. It's just important, something you should do just for the safety of yourself and for the people around you in the workplace. Basic maintenance and inspection is next. Always use, before use, conduct a pre-operation inspection. And after every shift, the forklift should be re-inspected or looked at, because you're in the workplace, you're working, the wear and tear of a forklift, something could happen, you don't know, and it's important to look at that and try and make sure that everything looks okay. And if it doesn't, something needs to be fixed before the next shift starts. That way the next operator that's on that forklift doesn't have to deal with the problem that maybe you caused or didn't mean to cause on your shift. And so that's important to do after each shift, is to examine it again. And that CFR code, 29 CFR 1910 1.178, that's the the forklift or power industrial truck code that has all the regulations underneath that for OSHA. That's important to look at as well to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Always too, operators should start with a pre-check with the key off, so the engine off, not running. And then they should do a check with the key on with the engine running, because there's different things you could hear something in the engine that may need to be looked at that you didn't hear with it off. And so it's important to do both before you start, just to make sure. It's really important, just to make sure that there's nothing wrong. There's also I have a list of kind of general things to look for in an inspection, a pre-inspection before use. And again, to different forklifts, different power industrial trucks, different fueled, they have different things to look for. And so this is kind of a general list of things to look for, but it kind of encompasses everything. But you do need to look for different things in different fuel, different sizes of forklifts. So, but this list right here, we're gonna have fluid levels. That's important. Always make sure that your fluid levels are good and you're not low on anything, so you're not burning up an engine on oil or running out hydraulic fluid to be able to lift the load. That's important. Another thing is to make sure there's no leaks or cracks or any other visible defect in anything on the machinery. That has to do with your forks. Make sure your fork's in good condition. Just everything. Make sure there's no cracks, no leaks, or anything in your hoses. That's good to look at. Next, we have tire condition and pressure. Without tires, you're not getting anywhere. Make sure your tires are aired up and the pressure is correct, and that your tires aren't cracked, the sidewalls aren't cracked. You're not gonna run into a problem when you get halfway through your shift and your tires are going down because your tires are bad. You should have changed them or had them changed. So that's important to look at as well. The next is condition of forks, including the top clip, retaining pin, and the heel. I mentioned it a while ago, but it is important to do that because that's what you're lifting your load with. If your forks aren't in good condition, then you can't lift your load. Load backrest extension, really important to look at. Finger guards, safety decals and nameplates. Operator manual on truck is legible. That's really important because if your operator manual is not legible on your truck or is not even there, what is that operator going to do when he doesn't know what to do in a situation or know how the equipment works if for some reason and he needs to look at the manual? If it's not there or not legible, then what's he supposed to do? And that falls back on the company. Operator compartment, check for grease and debris. Make sure that everything's clean in the area that the operator has to be able to operate the forklift and machinery. You didn't want to hang anything or be tripping over, slipping on anything around that area. And then all safety devices are working properly. Of course, your seat belt needs to be working properly, and you need to make sure that just all safety devices are working good and up to code. And last, operator requirements for certifications. So there's 3 different areas that are usually or typically looked at when you're trying to get a certification for an operator for a forklift. And the first one is going to be formal instruction, and that's going to be in the classroom. That's going to be done with lecture or some kind of video class or discussion, interactive computer learning. That's going to be in the class. That's going to be class material where you're learning the material and you're just kind of getting introduced to it. Your next is going to be practical training. That includes hands-on demonstrations by the trainer, and that should be done with the forklift. For the trainee, that should be done for the forklift that they're going to be able to use in the field, that they are going to use in the field. So that way they're familiar with it. That way they know what they're doing, and they can go right into the workplace knowing what they're supposed to be doing and how to run it. And then the last is evaluation, and that's the effectiveness of training by observing the operator's performance using the forklift should be conducted in the actual workplace. And so that last one's important too, because that is real life, real situation experience. And so that is for the trainee to be able to realize, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is how it's going to be done. And then the person that's giving the training knows that they are able or capable of handling the forklift in the workplace. And so that's all I have for you today.